Hi folks, are INFJs loyal in friendship? Well, that is a very good question, and we're going to try to explore this question in this video. So I think the first thing that we should probably emphasize, and that sometimes passes people by, is that loyalty in fact means different things to different people. And I think that here there is a kind of analogy with what is kind of trendy these days, which is the discussion of love languages. That for some people, love is more about acts of service. Other people consider that love is more about words of affirmation, or more about quality time, or more about gifts, or more about physical touch, right? There's ways in which we value demonstrations of love or affection that might be different from the ways that other people value the same thing. And when it comes to loyalty, what I would say is that just like people of other types, INFJs tend to show people the loyalty that they themselves expect and value, right? And that can lead them to being misunderstood by other types because maybe the other types don't value loyalty in the same way, which is why, depending on the type that you talk to, they might consider INFJs to be very loyal or not particularly loyal. But if they don't consider the INFJ loyal, of course, there's always the idiosyncrasies and peculiarities that have to do with, how a certain person behaves. Like in the total world population of INFJs, there's obviously people who are not very well behaved and not very loyal, regardless of the category we apply to the term. But I would say, by and large, generalizing, across the representatives of a type to the type itself, INFJs are pretty reliably loyal according to the criterion that they themselves possess and expect of other people. And I would say that this loyalty that can be expected of them is a coherence of worldview. Coherence of worldview is really the way that I would put it. As you know, if you've watched my videos before, I often emphasize that NI dominants really are defined as types that have a particular worldview. The more common word that you will find in the literature, and you're aware of this, and I've talked about this before, is the word vision. They're often defined as people who have a vision. Now, I don't think that this term is particularly useful, although in a kind of ordinary meaning sense, I sometimes use it because it works for kind of pragmatic purposes a lot of the time. But if we want to drill down and be more specific, vision is not that accurate, because you can really find ways in which many other types are excellent visionaries, and perhaps better visionaries than INFJs. In my book, The Ecstatic Soul, so this is the book that was released 3 years ago. You can still get it at the links below, which is an analysis of INFJ consciousness. Check the reviews, by the way, they're really good, and it's still a book that's selling well, so it's considered by many people essential INFJ reading. I propose to replace vision with prescience, and that's not the same as worldview, because I think what INFJs experience is the feeling in one's bones that one is certain of something without being able to explain it, right? So that's not quite vision, and it's an experience, which is why the Ecstatic Soul is about quintessential INFJ experiences, and prescience is a very strong experience that recurs a lot in INFJ life. Worldview is more the way that you would describe how INFJs articulate their view of the world. It's not a vision in the sense of being necessarily completely forward into the future, but it tends to be articulated as a holistic concatenation, a holistic whole, if you like. And people, including friends of INFJs, can really expect them to be coherent in terms of how the INFJ sees them. You're friends with an INFJ, the INFJ trusts you. It means that a whole set of information, facts, propositions about you, beliefs and propositional attitudes, are inserted in that web, which is the holistic INFJ mind, and you can really expect that it's going to remain there. And even as the INFJ updates their worldview, because of course they don't update it easily, compared to other types, which sometimes can be an issue with vision, by the way, because society these days moves fast and INFJs move slower in terms of the way that their mindscape works. But you will always maintain the place, even as the worldview of the INFJ evolves, you will maintain the place that you have. And you can expect INFJs to always hold, to have you holding the place that you hold and to not lose it. So you can expect that predictability from them, of course, provided that you don't disappoint them or betray them or something like that. But there's something a little bit intuitive and intellectual about the way that this loyalty is shown. So it's not really a loyalty of acts of service. INFJs are not really big on acts of service. They're indifferent. They're often indifferent to it when you perform acts of service for them. If you bring them, you do something that they didn't ask for, and they'll thank you. They have a FE politeness, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they would consider that it's to be like super enhancing to them. They'll appreciate it, but it's not the kind of loyalty that they value the most. The loyalty they value the most is going to be the loyalty they show. So this coherence of worldview, which of course can be disappointing in relationship with people of other types, because people of other types are not necessarily going to show their loyalty in the same way. If you take FE dominance, for example, it will be a lot about acts of service and gifts. And when I say gift, I don't necessarily mean physical gifts, but showing, like a lot of social showing that this person, that you're loyal in a certain way to a person. INFJ is not very sensitive to that. They're much more about the coherence of vision. So if this is what you feel you are getting from an INFJ, try to pay attention. This means that the INFJ is at peak loyalty. And it also means something important, something that you should never forget, is that INFJs are quite picky about who they are really, really closely friends with. They're very mysterious to most people because they don't share. They're very private. That can frustrate people, extroverts in particular. So if you sense that they hold you in a certain place in their minds and that your position is very consistent over time, that means that the INFJ is loyal to you and that they hold you in high esteem. And usually, that's the most you can expect in terms of INFJ loyalty. That's what they value most. So it also means they value you. Okay, and don't forget that in terms of the life, concrete living, leading a meaningful life, purposeful life, a rich life, I have written a new book on the INFJ called The Infinite Soul, INFJ Life in the Modern World. It's a sequel to The Ecstatic Soul. This one is more about like looking into the INFJ mind, the INFJ consciousness, and the experiences of the INFJ, going deep. This one is about bringing this consciousness out into the world and looking at how we can find meaning and happiness in a world that sometimes seems, again, so technological, fast-paced, and hostile to the INFJ mind. So you can get this book. It's the first link down there. Good review so far. Very good review so far. Get the book. Less than $10 for, this book and the other book. And as always, I have a Patreon page. Recently, people have started supporting me again after a lull period. So helpful to me. I'm so grateful that you're supporting me, for those who are. Consider it as well for those who haven't yet. You can interact with me there. I'll see you soon, guys. Bye-bye.